This is the GoPro Max 2, which is their new 360 camera, and this is the GoPro Hero 13, which is the current standard, like regular GoPro action camera. The thing about the Max 2, even though it's a 360 camera, that made me really interested as soon as they announced it was the genuine, like actual 8K resolution, because sometimes when you're dealing with 360 cameras, you're essentially putting a circular image on a square sensor. And sometimes, believe it or not, companies lie about the actual resolution because you have a square sensor, but there's this circular image inside. And so if that square sensor is, a 4K sensor and there's two of them because there's two lenses, then it's an 8K camera, even though not all those pixels are being used. One of the unique things that GoPro said about the Max 2 is that it has each sensor has 4K actual usable pixels. So then you combine those and you get an actual 8K image, which is pretty cool. And the image quality from this as a 360 camera is pretty darn awesome. But that's actually not what I'm talking about today. And this has been out for a little bit now, so there's tons of really good like detailed spec reviews and overviews and stuff. So go watch those. Go watch DC Rainmaker if you want to know everything about a GoPro. What I want to talk about today is, do you need both of these, or is this finally a 360 camera that can also be a really good action camera? And GoPro did send me the Max 2, but I'm under no obligation to say anything, do anything, make a video. I don't care if you buy this camera or not. I'm just curious to answer this question for me. Prior to this, the only 360 camera I've owned is the Insta360 One X2. This is 3 or 4 years old now at this point. This is a really fun camera. Like, Insta kind of nailed it. 360 cameras can be great, but it's really the software that makes them, and Insta's software, like the desktop and the mobile version, is just awesome. This is a 4K camera, but the image quality, I always took it as I'm taking a hit on image quality to get the versatility of 360. And anytime that I only used one of these cameras, like I just needed a single lens camera, it drops down to 1080, and it's honestly not great looking 1080 footage. So the fact that the Max 2 offers not only really good looking 8K 360 video, but potentially single lens video that's on par, or at least pretty darn close to it, with a regular GoPro. This can go up to 5.3K, the GoPro Hero 13, and the single lenses here can go to 4K. So that is different, but it's kind of negligible. So what that means is, if you're going somewhere, do you need to take your action camera and your 360 camera? Or do you just get both in one right here? And that's really what I want to look at. So on the Max 2, what you can do is, if you're in regular video mode, I'm in 360 mode right now, I can just swipe down, and then right here it says camera mode 360, I can tap that, and now it says camera mode single lens. And now the camera's only going to shoot from one of the camera's lenses, but you can actually choose which one, which is pretty cool, because there is a little reverse thing right here. So if I do that, now it's going to flip and it's going to do this lens. You can even though I'm at the side of the camera over here, you can still see me in the frame. So you can film from this rear facing lens right here, or you can film over here. And both of those are capable of doing up to 4K 60. So how does that look compared to the GoPro Hero 13? I'll put this in 4K mode and we'll do a few comparisons, and we'll also do the different modes. Actually, let me go grab the test footage. So the first thing let's look at is just like a kind of a direct comparison as an action camera. This is in the linear mode. If you've ever used a GoPro, the linear mode is the one that kind of looks the least like a GoPro. You don't have the fisheye effect. It's not as wide as some of the others. And this is basically what the Max 2 and the Hero 13 look like in linear mode, just holding them side by side and filming. So even though the resolutions can be the same, what's happening inside and the lenses we're using aren't the same on these two cameras. So I did notice that even in linear mode, the Max 2 is a bit wider than the Hero 13. So if I put the Hero 13 into wide mode using its wide lens, then that seems pretty comparable. And now you can kind of see a side by side of the two cameras, the Max 2 being in linear mode and the Hero 13 being in wide mode. And field of view wise, they're pretty similar. So that's where we need to then look at, color, sharpness, just detail, all the things that would make the image either good or not so good. And personally, as I look at these, I think that the color and the overall image quality of the Max 2 is pretty darn good. Like, way more usable than the single lens image quality of the Insta360 cam from several years ago. If you look at the edge of the frame, even on linear mode, you will kind of notice things get slightly less sharp and a little more like distorted and fisheye looking when it kind of like these palm trees, they kind of get close to the edge of the frame and they kind of get a little warped and funky looking. Whereas on the 13, it kind of keeps things sharper and less distorted even at the edge of the frame, especially when it's in linear mode. It does a really good job. So if you ever want to mix it in with regular cameras, then it kind of does a good job there. But obviously, you probably don't only want to use linear mode. They do have different lens options, so I do want to do side-by-side comparisons of all the different lens options between the two cameras. This is now wide mode on the Max 2 and wide mode on the 13. Now there is also an ultra-wide view on the Max 2, so this is ultra-wide on the Max 2, again compared to the wide view on the 13 because it does not have an ultra-wide field of view, but it does have GoPro's naming conventions are a little tricky. It does have ultra wide fields of view, but they're just called different things. This is now super view on both cameras. So this is a very wide field of view on the Max 2. It says it's 14 millimeters. On the 13, that's listed as 16 millimeters. And now this is hyper view. This is the widest field of view on each camera. Hyper view on the Max 2, hyper view on the 13. This is listed as 14 millimeters on the Max 2 and 12 millimeters on the 13. But I think you'll notice it's significantly wider on the Max 2, even though it's listed as a narrower focal length. So it kind of makes sense that the 360 camera with, you know, the 180 degree lenses is going to have a wider field of view than the standard GoPro. And it does depend on how you want to use these cameras. Are you trying to mix action camera footage in with, you know, footage from a regular mirrorless camera and sort of try to make it seamless where you're going to be using that linear mode a lot? Or are you going for the action camera look, the super wide, super fisheye, like capture as much as you can in the frame look? That could kind of, you know, if you're going to use a lot of linear, it might steer you this way because it does, linear mode does look better on the 13. If you just want super wide action cam field of view, well, this is wider. So there are some things to keep in mind there. It also just keeps in mind how picky you are, because even though the single camera image quality from the 13 overall is a scotch better than from the Max 2, especially again looking at distortion around the edges and blurriness around the edges, this is still really good, really usable, better than a lot of dedicated GoPros of years past. So you absolutely could, and I think this is the first time I can confidently say this about a 360 camera, you could use this as both. This can be your 360 camera, but it can also just be your action camera, and this is the only camera you would need to take for that to be possible. Now I do want to do a similar test just in here so you could kind of see what it looks like with a person in the frame, and over here I am just using auto white balance and the natural color setting, so nothing too crazy, just kind of what the normal person's gonna get when you just pull out the camera, turn it on, and press record. Kind of looks something like this. So this is the Hero 13. This is the Max 2. They're both on linear mode. The 13 does have another linear mode called Horizon Lock, which will then, even if you like rotate the camera almost all the way upside down, it's gonna keep the horizon level. The Max 2 does not have that mode because it has 360 capabilities. So yeah, but anyway, this is linear mode on both. And you can kind of see over here on the 13, the difference in field of view. I kind of tried to position it where it's like you're sort of cutting off like the middle-ish edges of this orange guitar. And then the 13 goes to the edge of the workbench over here. But the Max 2 in linear mode, I can do, you know, the same edge of that guitar and you can see the entire bass amp over here. So that is, sorry, it's like all mirrored. It's very confusing. So that is a significantly wider field of view in linear mode. So again, I've now put the 13 into wide field of view and I've kept the Max 2 in linear mode, and now you can see their fields of view can be a little more similar. If I like kind of line up that orange guitar sort of at the edge of the frame a little bit, you're seeing actually a bit wider of a field of view on the 13 versus the Max 2, but they're pretty even. So the most cropped in linear point of view on the Max 2 is basically going to be the wide field of view on the 13 or on a regular GoPro that you might be used to. And of course things do change if I put the Max 2 into wide mode, because now you can see, so here we have this other green guitar and the chair that's supposed to be out of frame. On the 13 we have the same guitar and the chair, and then over here we kind of end at the bass amp. Yeah, that's my bass amp. So backwards. But the Max 2, we have the computer desk. You can see, you know, the PC and the monitors and stuff. So we're getting a much wider field of view, even though they're both in the same field of view technically. And now we are in the ultra wide. I'm getting that 90s rap music video vibe. You can even see the Hero 13 in here. Oops. So, and then on the 13, we are in super view. So I actually went wider because there is no ultra wide on here, and I did the wide comparison earlier. So this is super view on the 13. You can see if I put the green guitar in the corner, now we're kind of going over here. We're also seeing a lot more of the ceiling. Here, oh my goodness, if I put the green guitar in the corner, you can see all of the walls, other than like the 360 from behind. You can see all three walls, the ceiling, and the floor. And this is just ultra wide. Oh boy, I haven't used this camera in here yet, so this is gonna look silly. And you can see the other GoPro right here, which is so crazy. And now this is super view on the Max 2, and this is super view still on the 13. So this is what both cameras are calling super view. Again, this hasn't changed from before. You can kind of see how wide it is. And then over here, it's even wider. You can see just more and more of like the ceiling is creeping into frame. More and more fisheye distortion is happening over here. I'm like a Beastie Boys music video, which is pretty awesome. It's the coolest I'll ever be. This is hyper view on the 13. So this is as wide as we can get. We have a decent chunk of the ceiling, the floor. You can see, hopefully not see that I'm not wearing socks in here right now. You guys see everything. This is now hyper view on the Max 2, which is like I don't know, if you look at this camera, look at the FX3, you see how like the cameras are basically right next to each other, but on the Max 2 you can see like it's crazy. It really is a 180 field of view. Like I could probably be just over here. I am on the side of the camera looking through the side of the lens, and you can still like kind of see me over here. So if you want ultra wide, like the widest you could possibly get fields of view, then the Max 2 is the camera for you. Although that's not to say the Max Hyperview, Super Hyperview, I don't know, hyper is more than super apparently in the GoPro universe. So if you look at that, this is as wide as you can go with the standard lens on the Hero 13. And so then with all of that in mind, now that we've talked about the Max 2, this is just such a crazy looking shot over here. If you do want to learn more about the Hero 13, which is also a really fun camera, I do have an in-depth review on this camera that you can check out right here. Oh, and also time-lapse modes, because GoPros do really fun time-lapse things. I have a guide on that. That's pretty fun too.